First up tonight, Joanna Streetly. Joanna is the author of 5 books with work in Best Canadian Poetry 2024, Best Canadian Essays 2017, and many magazines. She lives on unceded Tla-o-qui-aht territory and was the inaugural Tofino Poet Laureate. Her new poetry collection, All of Us Hidden, was published this fall by Caitlin Press. Joanna Streetly.
I'm going to need help because yeah. Vertically challenged. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that will. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Lauren, and thanks for your gracious hosting tonight. Many thanks also to Kieran for the inclusiveness and tireless outreach that makes Planet Earth such a vital point of connection for poetry and poetry lovers. Kieran, I know you probably are tired, but you seem tireless, so thank you for all of that. I'm very grateful to be touristing on the Kwangan territory, down visiting from Nachuks in Tla-o-qui-aht. And I've been very much enjoying what's remains of the trees on the leaves on the Garry Oaks. Trees do feature in my book, but All of Us Hidden originally coalesced around a suite of poems called Deer Island. These evoke an early time in my life when I lived on a remote outer island with my then partner and his 2 young sons. Years later, in coming to terms with the disappearance of those boys one night and the weeks, month, lifetime of searching that follows a disappearance, I revisited the island and these poems tumbled out. Some of the poems from Deer Island are now part of a free audiobook that's on my website. And that's just the first section of the book. So I'm going to read a few from that first section, and then we'll move into other sections after that. I'm not used to this big table here. So this first poem is called First Supper, and come with me way back in time to a time when I was 19 and new to Canada, and completely adrift from my own culture, my own family, my own past, and completely immersed in a new culture and a new family. First Supper. That first supper on the island, when I'm 19 and the brothers butterfly salmon, splay them on sticks against the beach fire, I don't know things yet. Jane tokes and laughs with flashing eyes. Ray cooks and I do dishes, she says, smoothing the black feather in her hair, poking the fire with a stick. The salmon grow golden, spilling white fat. I'm first to hold out my plate. I've always hated the dank smell of fish, so why does this make me hungry? Ray laughs when I ask for more. Ha, 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 those 2 front teeth protruding. I lean against Jack, hear swells surge up the beach, wrap us in ocean paper. When I comb pea-sized pebbles, find a cobalt glass trade bead, centuries old and bloody as a diamond, I still don't know things. Beautiful, I say, turning it over in late summer light. Overhead, 2 ravens watch from a Sitka spruce. The meadow is tranquil, a void where longhouses were. And when oversized men in an undersized inflatable tried to land at the rocks in pressed suits and shiny shoes, briefcases, and religious tracts in hand, I still don't know things. Jane and I, we hoot at their slipping and falling, but Ray and Jack spill with sudden fuck. Leave us the fuck alone. This is our fucking land. I wade knee-deep in the bay, wash dishes I can't make clean, while the brothers reminisce about running away from residential school, and beach hoppers bite my cold, white feet, hungry for blood. I look down but can't see them, water blurred by all the things I don't know. That night, when fuck becomes a good word, Jack's body helps me know things, tongue spangling my ignorance with delicate atrocities, one at a time. And in the darkness, even the ravens squint at the pallor of my nakedness. Fireflies. Of course, the roof leaked and the mice came in, and the boys found wrens in the bread box scratching an ecstasy of crumbs. The dog dug holes we fell in at night, and sometimes the tide came so high we couldn't open the door without waiting for a wave to recede. Of course, there were times when the tide fell so low the boat was stranded on rocks. And there were times you didn't come home and didn't say why, and I too was stranded on the wordless island in the time before wireless words. We ate supper on the beach because we lived on the beach. The coals of our fire banked against the endless northwesterlies of summer, and of course, after supper, the boys poked the coals with sticks until sparks streamed skyward in surges. Infinity loops, their spark-spilling sticks threaded black pillars of trees, on until they were fireflies, the forest alive with their light voices. And when they finally slowed, they could have been deer, vast eyes fringed with inky lashes that slept against the perfect down of their cheeks, though I never told them then that they were perfect. And of course, I should have, the way things turned out. I should have learned to read their palms, fingers halting at the stubs of their truncated lifelines. I should have tamped my terrified love into the cups of their finite firefly hands, given them hindsight's universe, all I've wished for since. This poem, Gyre, was somewhat of a catalyst for the Deer Island poems. For me, it embodies the experience of searching, which is a minefield where lives depend on your skills of observation, and every second counts. I did have stepsons. No, I should say I do. And I did look for them, but I should say I didn't find them. No one found them. I should say that my stepsons were not found, unless you count those few bones, that tattered shirt, the Levi's that lasted all those months in the kelp. And did you know that kelp beds, the kind that are impossible to propel your kayak over or through, the kind that make a carpet on the sea, one that makes you believe you can walk on water? Did you know that those kelp beds are keepers? Whole collections, white styrofoam dots, water half drunk in plastic bottles with blue labels and blue lids, sleeping sea otters, sometimes more than one, half shells of mussels floating like blue Venetian gondolas in circular canals with no exits, tiny minnows that leap for no reason, and land not in water, but on blades of kelp, some ridged, some smooth, all of them growing before your sunlit eyes, while the minnows in their silver straitjackets jerk and gasp. Deeps and shallows. These bones once danced the deer dance, played at stepping through water with exaggerated slowness. Blue heron, O great one, your disapproving side eye. Catch me if you can. A cormorant diving, flash of dark motion. Not a hand waving. Paddle further. Crab float, orange and black. Not a life jacket. Eyes becoming tunnels, arms becoming wood, legs becoming sea through the hull of my kayak, slippery boys becoming fish, becoming deer, becoming clouds. Every time I look, they are somewhere else, and me, the last to spot them. I dredge pop-eyed dreams, distended song bladders, and I should say that nothing is the past. I should say that I search circular canals with no exits, knowing I do have stepsons. I do. Nothing is the past. They are there in my ribcage, knocking. I'm going to float away from Deer Island to a section of the book that is called Living My Mother. And this poem picks up on a key theme of the collection, which is time's refusal to let anything remain the same, ever. And so the transformation and everything, matter changing form. After paddling down the Stikine River, I camped on an island at the terminus of the LeConte Glacier, surrounded by mudflats at low tide. We walked among stranded pieces of ice, and the transformation of ice to water, this death or disappearance, really stuck with me. The incredible blue of the ice, a color composed only of water and light and time, a color I still have no words to describe, was disappearing before my eyes. I'm also an artist, and the idea of color itself intrigues me. My tubes of paint come with names that get progressively more elaborate every year. And yet the colors we are blessed to experience in this world are really impossible to catalog. For which reason this poem is called Perhaps Blue. January, and I am pruning lavender. A school group stops near my garden, teachers shouting over a bauble of hats. Not including human things, what colors have you seen so far? From open mouths, green, brown, blue. But when he asks what colors are missing, what they haven't seen, I stop clipping. If not children, who else might speak colors that live beyond lists? Who else might hazard the hues of this brisk day, wind rooster-tailing from the backs of waves, or the colors of rain, from mist and mizzle to downpour? Who else might perfectly express the glacier's perhaps blue, clutched by its vulnerable fortress? Ice light, a flicker through windows of time, always another glazed layer away. Even as I watched a meltwater pool form and pondered flux. My mother's years folded inside her, her eyes in the months before her death, luminous with their record of passage. And later, in a vision, those eyes overflowing, spilling a waterfall of blue into me, like meltwater, rain, sea, as she vanished and arrived, both. And this last poem is still from that section, Living My Mother, and really going to change the mood, because sometimes that's good to do. So indulge me as I switch to my mother tongue, journeying back to my Coca-Cola deprived origins in Trinidad. Trinis are known for enjoying life. So as a child, my mother's rules were a source of great irritation, both to me and my friends. Luckily, we had neighbors. This poem is called Thirst. I sneak over to Jean and Flora's when school is out. Teacher's note to my parents hidden between bougainvillea and wall, my mother safely resting. 3 o'clock heat burns my flip-flops, speeds my thirsty feet. I slide through bushes, disturb lime green lizards who scuttle from the giant. Flora moves her crochet bag, offers me a chair, pours me Coca-Cola with ice that clinks when I swirl it and swirl it. The bottle on the counter sweating like me. Jean reads and smokes, red lips kissing the filter. I picture lizards hiding in the hollows of her curlers, faces like peas green against her new black hair. The fan moves heat corner to corner, cools the people kissing on the front of Jean's book, tickles her long cigarette ash. Flora pats the curlers. Color's better this time. She cups a hand, catches Jean's ash as it falls. I probe ice cubes with my straw, slurp the last drops of desire. Flora pours me the rest, answers the ringing phone. No, I haven't seen her, she murmurs as I jump up and run.
Thank you, Joanna. Amazing, powerful, and moving poetry. Just for your information, there's a multi-sensory installation called Water Connects that blends Joanna's poetry with visual projection. She just came from the opening of it tonight to explore water stories of loss and renewal. And it's on every evening until Thursday, November 20th at House of Owl. So that's just around the corner on Blanchard and Burdett. So look for Water Connects, Joanna's poems and visual projection, 6 to 9 p.m. now through November 20th. And now our second reader for the evening, Brian Bartlett. Brian Bartlett has published many poetry collections and 3 volumes of nature writing. His honors include the Atlantic Poetry Prize, the Acorn Plantos Award for People's Poetry, 2 Malahat Review Long Poem Prizes, and a short listing for the 2025 Al and Urith Purdy Poetry Prize. He has lived in Halifax, Shabuktuk since 1990. Brian Bartlett's 8th collection of poems, The Astonishing Room, was recently published by Frontenac House. Please welcome Brian Bartlett.
Is this going to be about right for me, this height? Thank you so much to Kieran and Lorne and what I think is the most remarkable bookstore in Canada. I really have been to a lot of bookstores in Canada. I think this takes the cake. You all agree? And unfortunately, I'm at a stage in life where I'm trying to downsize and get rid of books rather than accumulate more. But it's a deeply, when you've been a book collector for 60 years of your 72 years of life, it's a really difficult transition to painful transition to make. Anyway. And it's no coincidence that a lot of the poems in this book actually are about acts of reading. One of the fun things about giving a reading is that you can switch around the order of your poems that you've tried so hard to get the perfect order for in a collection, and then you do a reading, and because you're only reading a fraction of them, you move them around and so on. So one thing I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to begin with the final poem of the book, and then I'm going to end with the first poem of the book. So the poems all, when you do them in a public reading, they tend to find new neighbors, and sort of they reverberate and ring across different ways than they do in the collection. So I don't know if you're the only person, if I'm the only person, I'm sure I'm not in Canada, who's grown a little tired of the expression "at the end of the day." Right? Anybody else kind of think like they've heard "at the end of the day" enough? Okay. So the last poem in the book is called 11:59 p.m. It was the year when everyone and his dog, cat, and crocodile kept saying "at the end of the day." In one ear, out the other, filler, empty phrase, yet more diurnal than when all is said and done, and lighter than ultimately. The key was to speak the words without thinking them. You could say "at the end of the day," at any hour, and nobody pictured a falling sun or rising moon or heard nighthawks squeaking high overhead, unseen against a dizzying sky. Few wondered if the end meant twilight or the final moments as PM phased into AM. What if we had said mechanically at midnight? In the kitchen, he meets her eyes, whispers, "Should we point out they've overstayed their welcome?" She sips her wine again and says, "It's not worth insulting them at midnight." Finally, we find, living in the great metaphor of human history spanning 24 hours, that we're truly at 11:59 p.m. All too much like a dystopian B film from the 1950s. Taps gone dry, our windows shatter, grayness shrouds us while gorging fires grow closer. At the end of the day, dear family, friends, and strangers, it's late. And I never imagined that I would write a collection that ended with the apocalypse. So as I mentioned, many poems that deal with acts of reading, and I'll share with you a few of those, or at least a couple of those. This one goes back pretty well 50 years. The next two poems I'm going to read kind of go back to 50 years ago. New Year's Eve question. In the 1970s, young poets writing into the night talked of the heart and the mind. They praised blood and veins, comparing their brain to a cage, a cloud, a maze. Long before our 30th birthdays and house hunting, bank loans, children, we dived into Hesse and Kazantzakis, gripped by grand dramas of monk and criminal, mule-spirited scholar and lion-hearted drunk. We stormed through those novels as if heading into a do-or-die choice. From the start, I spared my poems the tricky word heart, spelling it out like cutting off an eagle's wings or making a smoke puff to mimic mystery. At a New Year's party, A friend with red wine splashed on his t-shirt asked, "Would you call yourself Apollonian or Dionysian?" My fence-sitting reply refused either mantle. It all depends. Next morning, I cursed myself for not having grabbed a fork or knife, no Zorba, and easily pegged a Libra. Decades later, my mischievous memory refilms the scene. The mind, too, I answer between bites of cheese, holds grapes, birds, and fire, and the heart can be a crate of lumber or a bowl of keys. I am anything but tongue-tied. On my solitary homeward climb, a full moon glows through snowy chaos. And when there are chuckles in the audience, especially when I get to the middle of the poem, I always wonder, if those are the fellow Libras in the audience who are, how many Libras out there? Well, not that many. Okay. Okay, so there are a number of poems in the book that have this parallel titles. There's a reader at 13, a reader at 20, a reader at 40, a reader. I'm going to read you a couple of those anyway. Start with the one that's kind of from the same era as the poem I just read, and it's the one that also supplied the title for the book. It's called A Reader at 20. And under the title, it says Harriet Irving Library, Fredericton, 1973. The astonishing room was like a heart's chamber. Its red carpets and glowing leather chairs made my friend Bill joke, the lobby of Hades? Fire rising all around, touching every surface, with the red you find when you need dark and squeeze your eyes against the sun, capillaries tinting your lids. From floor to ceiling, shelves were rivered with wood grain. A pair of long tables stretched like festive spreads in Beowulf's family, but the only food and drink were books and papers. The only sounds, stray coughs, turning pages, pen scratches, imitating mice crisscrossing the shadows. Behind higher chair backs, lips took joy in lips, hands explored nooks, illegal pills slid down throats. In autumn, when classrooms blossomed, that room was a cave scooped from a hill of scarlet leaves. In winter, tall, empty boots relaxed, medieval dogs, Egyptian cats. Blizzard reddened, I doffed my coat, the millions of pages warming my heart, an apple on a spit. A place in time where you could become any place in time. The room was the red of Mars, but spruce needles clinging to my pant cuffs belonged to a green and blue planet. At the opening to my third decade, I embraced the impossibility of drinking it all, those billions and trillions of surrounding symbols. Jumping ahead to A Reader at 68. We must have a lot of little free libraries here. Yeah. I've got about 5 within like a 10-minute walk of my house. And that's where I'm getting rid of some of my books. A Reader at 68. In the brightly painted, rusty nailed box of a little free library down the block, among picture books sporting covers with giraffes and crocodiles and cookbooks squeezed against gardening guides, The Savage God, A Study of Suicide. Price sticker cracked, paragraphs bracketed, and lines underscored by pencil and pen. That paperback, a bramble bush in a multicolored field of flowers. Who had faithfully marked up the study after braving the cover? Illuminated skull, ice cube teeth, planet eye sockets. I've never fixated on its subject, except in fleeting moments. Yet in the pandemic's third spring, the week weighs leaden. More of Ukraine incinerated, a cousin's chemo pills not working, another brace for a quadruple bypass, a friend frightened to leave her house. For years, I've wanted to enter Alvarez's inquiry, but in my hand it felt like a hot coal, so I urged it back into the jumbled shelves and walked away as if great danger were at my heels. New day, new sky, new mood. I regret not welcoming the neighborly gift. Retrace my steps to the little free library, but the savage God is gone. Questions hound me through the cold. Who gave into the temptation to claim the book? Should I have spared them the act of carrying it home, one hand burning? The last poems I will read all relate to family. There's a lot of family in the book. There are also a lot of dreams, but I chose not to read you any of the dream poems now. You have to read the book to find them. So I'll start with two of the more personal dream poems. More of the personal family poems, and then I'll move into a final one, the first poem in the book. These were both written a decade or more ago. Oh, the title tells me this was written a decade ago. Handful of stanzas at 62. On the back of my right hand, a scatter of dark marks, circular, triangular, irregular, on pale skin slightly vein-ridged. My mother touches them, says, age spots. Age spots. Freckles, aren't they freckles? Age spots, she gently insists. She's 86, I'm only 62, so she should know. For that matter, I should know too, but have no clue how long ago the blemishes surfaced, if blemishes is the word. A pair of freckles I've known since teenage years hide under a watch strap in the day. A few on my arm are old casual companions, so I must have figured the back of the hand blots the same and half consciously connected them to sunlight and tanning rather than to time with its palette of browns, its random brushstrokes and unsteady hands. Inches away, I check the skin above the fingers holding the pen. Spots on a trout lily's stems, deep forested islands in a gulf, bruises on an overripe pear. Stare at yourself long enough and you see foreshadowings of other lives. Will you come back as a lily or a pear? Age spots, my mother insists. She likely doesn't recall my hands a week, month, or year old, unstained and unwrinkled. She speaks like one surprised to have simply discovered a truth. There's a little bit of a personal wordplay there toward the end that even my family didn't pick up on. The pear bit. Yeah, get it? Bartlett pears, right? Well, I come back as a pear. And another poem from about a decade ago, simply called Brow. The furrows in my daughter's forehead are my furrows. No, they're hers, only resembling mine. She's 15 and I was 46 at her birth, but the ageless creases, there they are, lines of trouble or perplexity, worry lines, grown-ups call them when I was younger than she is, and some aunt or uncle smirked saying, he's an old man already. Then brush my forehead as if to bring back original smoothness, the brow before shyness, embarrassment, and fear. My daughter's hair isn't mine, nor her nose, eyes, or facial bones. Friends and family note her likenesses to her mother first, yet the valleys mark us as daughter and father. I guess that's better than no marking at all, and is no curse but a sign of inheritance, like our laughter at having that common ground among all possible sharings. Fretfulness creates designs, like those of horse with plow, turning earth over earth, the track changeable like thought. But even the bond of overthinking is a comforting bond. Keep your dimples in common, your inheritance of blue eyes. Years from now, hospitalized, bedridden, half blind, may I be awake when my daughter kisses my brow. And finally, the first poem in the book. There was a question about whether having it's the beginning or the end, but I went for the first. A family reading, North Atlantic Ocean, 1912. An iceberg pierced the opulent ship, yet a mother in third class, trying to keep fears at bay, reads to her children in their cot. A barricade bars the gates to a higher deck, so joining the push of panic in the halls would lead nowhere safer or more hopeful. She opens her wide woolen sweater, pulls it in toward herself, then holds her son and daughter as tightly as years ago when they fed at her breast. A distant muddled alarm screams like a deep sea banshee as her eyes stay fixed on the book designed with roughly cut edges, each page both entrance and exit, shack and icy woods, oasis and desert. Shivering, the children listen to the climb and dip of their mother's voice. Frog tells Princess, I don't want your pearls or jewels or fine clothes, but if you love me and let me eat from your plate and sleep upon your bed, I will dive in to fetch your golden ball. The sweater's smell recalls the morning the children hugged a living sheep, breathing its ticklish flank. This comforts a little, but they know death slaughters all lambs, so they clasp each other's hands and feel the heat of fear doubled. Ropes of water thicken, a shallow stream crawling across the floor. Open the door, my princess dear, open the door to thy true love. The mother's reading gains volume, her spell turning the creamy page book into a raft. But the children will never learn Frog was once prince and becomes him again. In their faith, he remains a frog, likable, noble. Isolated pleas and the ship's profound groaning make the story harder to hear. Sister and brother all too awake. The water, numbing, searing, tears the book from the mother's hands. Thanks so much for listening.